Okay. So, or reviews.
Yeah. Okay, can you hear us now?
That's just like.
I can hear.
You like, well,
Yes, I can hear you now.
going in, because I don't know what's going on.
So we were just introducing, you and General Jake, and then, the agreement that we have. So if there's anything, I mean, couldn't really hear it, but if there's anything you want to share with the group or add, that would be the time. I know there's some folks who you have, probably not even spoken to yet, so you can, need to introduce yourself. That would be a good start.
I don't think it's working.
I heard a little bit of it. Hello everyone. Jake Silverman. I only see the Wildwood screen, so I don't necessarily know who I'm speaking in front of. But I'm Jake Silverman. I've been the legislative consultant for the city for now four sessions. I am the proud principal owner of Olympus Capital Strategies. I've been a lobbyist now for going on my eighth or ninth session, and so I've been proud to represent the city for these last 4 years, and I hope to continue my representation for a city that I love. I grew up here, and I actually just moved back to Point Clayton subdivision where I grew up since in 1988. So I'm looking forward to next session. Last year we were successful at getting the our water erosion funding request into the budget, but unfortunately, due to some issues that Governor Kehoe had with pretty much every single municipal budget item, I guess you could say, not even just water, but roads, bridges, and things like that were essentially cut and stripped from the final budget bill. Unfortunately, we did some work last year with Representative Ben Keithley from Chesterfield on some bump outs that the Missouri Department of Transportation added to it was Chesterfield and Clarkson Valley, I believe. And so I showed up to committee and testified against, testified for Representative Keithley's bill that would force the Department of Transportation to work hand in hand with municipalities before they make decisions like the bump outs that they put in just randomly. And so we, with Representative Keithley's work, along with our testimony and other cities' testimony, the Department of Transportation actually took those bump outs out. And so hopefully we won't have to deal with that again, but you can't necessarily always trust the bureaucracy. And then last year, we also worked and testified against a sales tax exemption on food that was proposed by Senator Mary Elizabeth Coleman. And so we were able to successfully stop that. Unfortunately, after just reviewing some of the bills that that have been popping up in the last 2 days since pre-filing, that bill is coming back again and has been introduced now by two senators, Mary Elizabeth Coleman, Senator Patty Lewis, along with Representative Ben Keithley from Chesterfield. So there will be some more work to do on that front. Does anyone have any questions about last session? I'd be happy to answer anything.
Other cities you represent? Other cities that you represent?
I don't represent any other cities. When I took on the city of Wildwood, I think I might have put it in the contract that I would not represent any other cities.
Hey, it's Cliff Albers. Jake, this is my second year on the council. I'm not sure who you're all sort of accredited with, if that's the right word. Are you the state reps in your zone, sort of? I guess.
Do you mean who I represent client wise, or who I guess you could say who I know in the local region?
Right. Justin Sparks, is he in your network, if that's the right?
Yeah, absolutely. Although Justin Sparks just took a position with the Trump administration, so that seat is open. And from my understanding, there will not be a special election. That seat will stay open until the this next year's election, November election.
We still don't have any representation, although we don't have somebody sitting there.
Well, that's fine then. My question was gonna be, I was gonna ask you if you could get him to attend one of our Wildwood council meetings and tell him what he's doing for the city.
I would be I would be happy to. However, like I said, he has stepped down from his position. He's not fulfilling the rest of his term. So
That's where I was going. for.
yeah,
Thank you.
absolutely.
We could probably though, and Jake could perhaps help facilitate this. I mean, it wouldn't be, I know that the staff and the mayor have reached out to Senator Gregory to join us. So if you want to do some lobbying to try to get him to come to a meeting, that would also be.
Sure. Yeah, I'm very close with Senator Gregory. I've known him for a long time.
Then what's the excuse that they don't come to any local city? Are they just that busy?
Well, if I will say, for a state senator, obviously they represent a larger area of the St. Louis County. Senator Gregory represents all the way into I believe even close to Kirkwood, and so he's got a pretty big district. Not saying that is necessarily an excuse. He is a trial attorney, so I do know that he's also very busy with that. However, Representative Sparks, I can't necessarily pinpoint why he would not show up to a city council meeting. As a lobbyist, I would like to see that from a legislator. As a resident of Wildwood myself, I too, that's another thing that I would like to see. But unfortunately, that's their schedule and that's their decisions.
Just from an old timer standpoint, in the last 29 years, we've never had somebody as a state senator or as a state representative not come to at least one meeting. So I mean, that's how sad it is, because now we're twice the size we were 20 years ago. But unfortunately, there's no reason for them to believe. And I mean, that's the way it used to be. The senators would come, the reps would come. If nothing more, just to always ask for their encouragement, what they could do to help, whether they were on the small business or on the municipality boards. They got a lot of things accomplished for us, but we hear zilch, nothing. And I just find that to be very incredible for some elected officials who believe that they're going to continue to do that for a long, long time. And I think we're going to be some real challenges. Just my 2 cents.
Anybody else?
Mr. Silverman, I just wanted to also, I know we opened up the floor a little bit to last year's session, but I did want to kind of open up the books. One thing you did mention was that the sales tax exemption is back on the docket in 2026. Could you kind of give us your rough analysis of how far that could go? We're not going to hold you to it. And then the second component, is there anything else as of right now in pre-filing where we should be keeping a close eye out for it?
Yeah. First, I'll definitely talk about the sales tax. Usually, I would say in the last 2 years with Mary Elizabeth Coleman sponsoring it, I did not think that there was much of a chance. However, now that there's a senator from both Republican and Democrat sponsoring this, along with Representative Ben Keithley, who is arguably in the Missouri legislature in the last 2 years, probably been the most successful at getting legislation to move. I think that it probably has a higher likelihood. Now, I will say that there's multiple reasons that senators and reps do things like this. One, it could be, they're thinking of their local government or their locality themselves. Representative Keithley, he represents Chesterfield. A food sales tax with all the shopping that's available in Chesterfield wouldn't necessarily it would do harm, but it wouldn't be the most detrimental thing to Chesterfield. for the city of Wildwood, it would be very detrimental. So making sure that we have good relationships with those legislators is key. I'm very close with Representative Ben Keithley. I mean, so much to say that he's a true friend. And so, honestly, keeping those alliances and those friendships is extremely important. I think that'll be helpful to maybe slowing down the possibility of a food sales tax exemption getting passed. And so, obviously, my role as a lobbyist or legislative consultant, however you want to say it, is to track these bills. I have an app that tracks it, tells me when a bill is up for committee, when a bill is getting ready for a vote, and so I keep my eye very close to bills such as the sales tax exemption because I know how important it is to the city of Wildwood to make sure that bill dies. A couple other bills so far 1,065 bills have been pre-filed, and that's only been 2 days. And so right now I've only looked at the House bills, and there's already been 56 bills filed that have that pertain to something that the city would care about. Sometimes, just to give you a heads up, now as the bill reports come through, you'll start to notice that some of those bills drop off the list when I send my report out. That's because after a committee hearing or things like that, we just noticed that it doesn't necessarily pertain to the city of Wildwood or a city for that matter at all. But there are there's 3 bills that, other than the sales tax exemption, that I think are very interesting. And I guess I'll start with one that I'm not sure if we'll necessarily like or dislike. It's just one of those where I think it's important to keep an eye on. It's House Bill 1720, sponsored by Representative Richard West. It relates to governing bodies and the meetings that they hold, such as the city of Wildwood, and the public comments that are allowed and the rules governing those public comments. And when I send my report out, you'll actually be able to see the bill. You'll be able to click a link that will send you to the state website that will kind of let you see what that bill specifically says, kind of dictates what the cities should require and with regards to public comments, how long they should be, who should be, what type of speech is allowed and things like that. So it's important that not only does the city council take a look at it, but honestly, at this point, I would think it'd be important that the city attorney look at it as well. And then there's 2 other ones that I'm very interested in, and it's the first that I have seen of the sponsorship from one of the representatives. It's a House Bill 1734 is a loan program to assist with erosion issues for HOAs. It allows a loan to the HOA that would be done by the state treasurer. The state treasurer would have a fund essentially that they would be able to invest, similar to the investments that they currently make in the office, and that loan would be able to be provided to HOAs. Those HOAs, from what I read, they need to be nonprofits. But I thought that would be something that's very interesting to the city, considering all the issues that we have with our creek erosion. Another bill is House Bill 1736, similar to those lines, but this is the sales tax that the county collects. They are allowed to use these things for parks and other things. This would open the ability to use those sales tax for erosion in metropolitan districts. So something that we might want to take a look at as well. And so those are 4 bills that I think specifically pertain to the city, especially those erosion ones. That's the first time that those have ever been sponsored. And I think it'd be really interesting. It was done by Representative Colin Wellenkamp. And so I'd like to talk with him and see what direction he wants to go with it. And if it's something that would benefit the city of Wildwood, I'd love to help in any sort of fashion that I can.
And that was actually, Sure, that was actually the office I think the governor's office actually reached out to the city on that exact legislation and could prove to be pretty beneficial. I guess real quick, two other things, Jake, and I just wanted to call this out. We had last year, the state legislature passed a bill that pretty much makes the city on the hook for any roadway project if we move. We happen to have to move broadband infrastructure as part of our roadway project, then now we have to cover the cost. And this kind of ties into just a few years ago with the cable franchise fee being capped and then reduced down to 2.5%. Do we see, or is there any bills that you're aware of to date that are gonna also kind of keep going in this direction where internet service providers, but also cable providers that are gonna impact? I think that's kind of the hot topic. It seems like a lot of bills tend to benefit those types of companies, and the city's been kind of hit in a negative way. Now, those two very much so. So I just wanted to see if there's anything in the works that may be pushing forward, and also if the committee would agree if there is legislation that comes up that would, either hurt our revenue or cause us more expenditure in the future when it comes to broadband infrastructure. What may be on the horizon there, just because it seems like every year there's new things coming up under that umbrella.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. Out of the 1,065 bills that have been pre-filed as of right now, I have not seen anything that relates to the right-of-way broadband infrastructure issue that has gone on for since it's been every year since I've represented the city of Wildwood. So I haven't seen anything just yet, but it's always something that I keep an eye on. Unfortunately, we have seen the big special interests are able to push their way around. And from my understanding was a deal might have been cut last year from the Missouri Municipal League. I don't know. I'm not sure exactly what deal was cut or how that went about. But yeah, so far I have not seen anything on the pre-filed bills, but I'm happy to keep an eye on it.
Motion and then, and is there any? Oh, absolutely, we wrap it.
Anybody need a question?
I hate to do this. Jake, were you involved when Dave Schatz, former senator, pushed through this whole utility bill that cost the city now to move utilities? Were you involved when he was senator? And he has a company that does that, so it's very self-serving.
I was a lobbyist when Dave Schatz was president of the Senate, or president pro tem of the Senate. I was not representing the city of Wildwood at that time, if I believe correctly. Yeah, I don't think I was representing the city of Wildwood at that time.
Thank you. Jake, I just have, I guess, maybe two quick things. One is, when it comes to the food tax issue, this is Joe Farmer. I don't know if you can see that, but so I was down there testifying. You got me set up in that room. But one of the questions I had then, which is still the question I have, while I understand the financial risks of the city, and I certainly don't endorse them changing that policy. If they were to change it, especially because Mr. Keithley is from an adjoining cities, and so my question is, what is the alternative? If they want to take that away, that's certainly okay. But I mean, even in that committee meeting, the answer seemed to be that then this municipalities that were losing money can just create a city tax of their own, and it doesn't have to come from the food tax, which to me just seems like a different group of people taxing the same amount of money. So I don't really understand the point. So that would be.
Yeah, sorry. You go ahead.
No, go answer that one, and then I got a second one.
You're 100% right, and I think that was brought up by almost every city. And if I believe correctly, Kirkwood, the mayor of Kirkwood brought that up specifically. And yes, it's if you take away the food sales tax, I mean, there's no other option for a city. And at the same time, while they're telling local governments to, we're going to take away the sales tax for food. At the same time, they're trying to pass legislation that makes it harder for cities to pass, tax levies. And so it's at some point, you know, and I think there's a lot of legislators, especially in rural Missouri, that understand that there's just no way that they could let this go through. And so sometimes I think it's political posturing. But no, I think it's a great point. If you're going to take away sales tax for food, we're going to have to get it some other way. And so, you know, I think they understand that. I hope they understand that. And that's why sometimes I do think it is political posturing. So,
I mean, I guess being a politician, I understand they probably wouldn't answer it directly, but I am curious, you know, if you were to put that to, any of the sponsors of the bill, I mean, certainly I would hope that they've come up with some idea of how that money would be recouped from the city, or their answer is it's just not going to be recouped from the city. I mean, part of the conversation I got there, many of them were saying, you know, cities work inefficiently and they could just make cuts. And the thing that I made at the time was there is no more efficient city than Wildwood in terms of staffing and everything else. So there are no cuts that we can make. So where do we come up with that?
well, and if I could just say, it's interesting that if you look at the legislators that have sponsored these bills, Patty Lewis is from Kansas City. It's, you know, if they cut food sales tax, there's shop. I mean, she literally has the plaza in Kansas City. She will be just fine. They can live. City of Chesterfield. I mean, yes, it would be very detrimental, but there's enough shopping and there's enough stuff going into Chesterfield that they would suffice. Mary Elizabeth Coleman, she's from Jefferson County. She's from Arnold. If you drive through Arnold, there's plenty of places to go shopping and other ways to get sales tax. They don't understand. Sometimes I think they're a little bit blinded. They have their blinders on. They're just focusing on their cities. And so sometimes it's important to remind them that there are other cities out there that rely heavily on this type of tax, and that if they want to do something like this, they're more than welcome to. They can just do a carve out for themselves. You know, I don't know exactly how many people live in Chesterfield. I would assume it's got to be over 50,000. We're at, I think, 35,000 or 37,000 or something like that. If if Representative Keithley cares that much about it, he can absolutely put in to the legislation that a city no more than 50,000 can exempt from sales tax for food and just leave Wildwood alone.
And then the last thing, I did joke a little bit about it earlier, but I think it is pretty widely understood that our former now representative, Mr. Sparks, was not perhaps well liked in Jefferson City. He had some dust ups with some folks there. So I don't know that necessarily hurt us in anything we were trying to do, but I'm willing to assume that it certainly didn't help us in any way. And so now that we are effectively, I guess, without representation for a year, what is your advice for us to do any of these things? Because, I mean, I guess it's Mr. Gregory and that's about it.
Yeah, well, so obviously, I think one of my favorite saying in lobbying is if you're not at the table, you're the meal, and it's unfortunate. So I think it's obviously, as the lobbyist for the city of Wildwood, I need to make sure that I'm essentially right now. I guess I'm the representative in some sort of fashion, just because he's not going to be there. So obviously, I'm just going to keep focusing on the legislation that impacts the city. I will keep working with the Missouri Municipal League to make sure that nothing passes that is detrimental to our city. I'm happy to be the spokesperson to leadership, to the governor's office, at any point for anything that the city has concerns with or wants to make comments about. So the city council can always rely on me. Tom Lee and I have had a great rapport along with the mayor, and so I'm happy to do that, and I hope I get the opportunity moving forward.
Anybody have anything else? Okay, you want a motion?
Motion to just bring this forth to the city council meeting at the next meeting and get ready for session next year.
All right, so the agreement has written.
Yeah, well, this isn't the actual. We'll have the consultant agreement on the agenda, but the scope is in there.
Okay.
The scope of the agreement.
Would anybody care to make the motion to proceed with this to this full city council? Made by Mr. Mabry. Amy, you got that one? All right, made by Mr. Mabry. Anybody care a second? Seconded by Ms. Nyan. All those in favor, please say aye.
Is that for next Monday?
Yep.
Okay.
Anyone opposed?
Aye.
Mr. Marshall's opposed. Any abstentions? All right, we'll move this to Monday. Thanks for joining us this evening, Mr. Silverman. You'll hear more from us, I guess, next week.
Thank you.
Joe, who's the rep down in Southwest Missouri that's always saying Wildwood's too affluent to, what's the guy? I can't think of,
State senator, it was a senator.
somebody out of Springfield or,
Something like that. I could look it up, but
okay,
there is, and that is something I've noticed at least secondhand. I'm not there all the time, but it does seem like there is this misconception down at the state capitol that since the median household income in Wildwood, but also in some of our neighboring cities, our municipalities, that since the median household income is high, that automatically translates to a high amount of revenue for that city, but they're not really taking into account that a lot of cities don't charge property tax. It's not as many as quite a few cities do in St. Louis County. And if it was tied to property tax, that median household value could make sense, but they're not considering that. That leads to some of the issues. I mean, at the end of the day, you know, I keep bringing this up. I sound like a broken record, but the change, like the things that really are damning, because in the sense, you have something like the exemption on the food tax that's going to be back up. That gets a ton of attention. It's going to be covered in the news. And that is something that obviously the city would lose a ton of revenue from. Some of the more sneaky and more painful things are like the cable franchise fee, which kind of slipped in, something that wasn't necessarily widely broadcast, but was just approved. And then that capped our gross receipts over time. And now we're stuck at 2.5%. And then also, I mean, last year, and this is where the broken record comes in, that change of having to cover the relocation of any non-rate regulated utility providers. I mean, that's, if you have, just for instance, if you had 3 different internet service providers that had installed infrastructure along, let's just say a section of Strecker Road, stretch of it, that could cost this, that could almost, increase the price of the project by 25%, depending on the cost. I mean, I've seen pretty crazy amounts depending on what the technology is they're using there. And it can range to a couple thousand to tens of thousands per linear foot to relocate that stuff. So it is damning. And just looking at, our first phase of the internet project, we 6.75 million to get to 2,000 houses. So I mean that was seen as the city getting a really good deal with Spectrum covering 15 million supposedly 15 million of the investment. So it is a significant cost to underground, specifically fiber, and that is what's going into under the ground these days. And I just think that is something that Mr. Silverman did bring to our attention last year, which I appreciate, and did speak on our behalf in those meetings. But those are the things that don't get as much attention, but are really, really troublesome if they keep approving things like that for any capital process.
is it Lincoln Howe, H-O-U-T-A?
Lincoln, yes.
Okay, because he was kind of the proponent of the watershed. He goes a couple times, saying they don't need the money, they got too much up there, right? Basically, okay.
This might just be something we might get, and I don't know if there's anything we can do about it, but it might be worth asking John. We may be slightly unique because when they redistricted, it's just us and Clarkson Valley. And so I would say in many other places, if a representative steps out, they still have somebody else there. I mean, without anybody for a year, that seems legally not feasible.
What's the process on replacing, because that's exactly how Justin got in.
I mean, I assume that they would either.
Republican committee stepped out.
I think that's how it's done. I think it's the local committee that assigns it.
In that particular case, that's Miles baby.
Yeah.
What I saw, yeah, we can fundraise coming up.
Yeah.
So I don't think we'll wait that long. I think they will come back as a Republican committee and appoint him to go back and put him on.
I think they have not done that because there's another seat they don't want to fill. And so they can't fill ours without filling theirs. And then, like I said, if we had, Yeah, but if we had a person who, when we represented, in theory, half of the city, we would at least have some ways to take it. It's saying, you don't get in for. I would maybe just ask, I mean, I'm sure Trump will say there's nothing to do, but if there is, maybe we should ask them.
We could definitely run that by the city attorney. And that said, I mean, I think that they're going to be doing a special election. They have another motive there. I do want to kind of understand at least how we fit into that. Is there a way to kind of pose the question or call the question?
Yeah.
We can look into that.
Okay, up next, proposed amendments to city council rules of procedure.
Thank you, Chair. And this is one of the revisits something that was discussed back all the way in 2018. It's been a while, but we've had a couple instances at council where there was discussion and this doesn't necessarily come up all too often. It really does make more of a difference when an ordinance is being considered. So the idea tonight, and I'll explain it with an example here in a second, is to look at our current rules of procedures where it two sides. One very specific component that we know is inconsistent with Robert's Rules of Order that is currently on the books within the Wildwood Municipal Code. It's not anything too crazy, but it has a lasting impact when operationalized. And then the other side of it would be potentially just reviewing the current rules of order and where it doesn't defer to Robert's rules or just standard parliamentary procedure, having a potential review to make sure that we're as aligned as possible while also keeping some of the things that keep Wildwood unique in line with Robert's rules. I mean, there's a lot of positive studies that show that when using Robert's rules and not deviating, it does help produce better discussions, and it does seem to get more people to integrate into the discussion. That said, where we're really looking at more specifically tonight is specific language within the difference between the majority and prevailing side. That is something that was discussed back in 2018, and it just never moved forward. It did not get passed. But that is different than what Robert's rules would call for. It would call for the prevailing side of any motion or a vote on an ordinance versus the majority. And the reason for that is, let's just say we've got a 16 council member body and you've got 12 folks that show up, let's just say you have 4 individuals that didn't show up for that meeting, and you have an ordinance that needs 9 votes in order to pass. Let's just say that you have 8 people vote in favor of an ordinance, and then you have the remaining 4 that voted against it. You didn't get the 9 to pass the ordinance, and under the normal Robert's rules, it would say the prevailing side has the ability to do a motion to reconsider. So that would say, when you're thinking prevailing, in that case, you would say it would be the individual that lost the vote, not lost, the individual, the 8 that voted for the thing to pass. If it was the majority, the other way around. Sorry, something's going on. It's tangent there. That said, the way it is now is that the individual from technically the minority position, where it has a lesser group of council members, can call that question back for reconsideration, which leads to some situations where you're potentially calling motions to reconsider 15 times. We haven't had that as of late, but it is something where if it was set back to the prevailing side, the majority side, how it was, how it is in most other cities, it would almost stop this discussion in its tracks. So in the future, there would not be an ability for somebody to keep calling an ordinance vote back up. I don't know, Mr. I actually did want to ask Mr.
Yeah,
Marshall.
I was gonna say, where I think we have a real challenge. It used to be, and again, you would see something failing, you vote to let it fail, and then right away, consider reconsideration and jump on the next meeting. It's over a month before we have the next meeting. So unfortunately, voting for something to be able to reconsider it is a moot issue since 2018, when it got really cloudy. I've never seen it done that way in place before with failings. I mean, it's either it goes or it doesn't go. And if it goes, anybody who voted yes for it could then has to be able to be the person who has to reconsideration. It could have been your proposal and it went down the tubes. You can't ask for it, but somebody else that voted for it has the right to bring that up under reconsideration. That's the way it was for years up until this 2018. I wasn't here. I'm surprised that it never got through.
Well, yes, sir. Oh, that's okay.
I could never find out.
So it was that way before 18. In 18, they brought it up to fix it. Like, what we were talking about.
How did it get that way? Previous. Referred that purpose or
I would say this way. I think that there was a group of people that felt it was very important that this trigger enabled them to basically just keep this thing rolling until they got what they wanted to have happen.
This is the 95, this is at some state where there was a term I've heard used about.
Yeah, I don't think it was not, it doesn't seem to have been in the very beginning, like it seems, at a point, I would suggest after Mr. Marshall was here. And before, I think, before Mr. Boland was there, this arrived. And then, at least from what I was reading, there was an attempt in 2018 to go back to the way that it should be. And maybe some of those same people felt that that isn't what should happen, so it came back to this committee. And effectively is now being brought up to be corrected again.
All right, I'll be the guy.
And at least per the, oh, sorry.
I'll be the guy that has. I was targeted or over now a single figure. Hard. We're from contending to work. We all know it. We should continue forward. And up to point.
Yeah, because it could be pretty easy.
Awesome. And it's finally fixed now, whether it started 12 or 15. Tonight,
All right, so here are the two things that were proposed, and if these align with what you're saying, would help maybe by emailing for these things rather than trying to. So the first part was to approve the updated reconsideration procedure. So basically, this is just taking up what was brought up in 2018 and taking it to the full council to determine whether or not we want to have this the way that it in theory should be versus this strange call out. So the draft ordinance based on 2018 language and reviewed by staff and city attorney include only formatting updates and is ready to be forwarded to the full city council for consideration. So that is your motion. All right, so do you want these in a couple parts, or do you want this all as one?
Let's go ahead if you don't mind, Chair, if we could have this be broken up into two motions, one specifically focused in on recommendation for this change and then the other being.
So Mr. Mayberry will make that motion. Anybody care a second? All right, we'll have Mr. Preston second as well. All those in favor of moving this language to the city council for Monday night, please say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, and then the next one are kind of two parts. One is to basically request the staff and the attorney to double check all of our things and make sure there's none of these weird provisions in else hiding. So, and some of this goes along with what we've talked about. So direct the city administrator and city attorney to compile a list of procedure areas where practice does not match Robert's rules, practice differs from charter or ordinance intent, or longstanding customs have evolved without formal adoption. So all the things that we do where it's just like,
or we think we're doing them.
I think we are and we're not, all those, so they're gonna make the list for us. And then the last part is to establish a follow-up process, request that the compiled list be presented to the committee at the January meeting, at which time the committee can determine which, if any, items should be clarified, modified, or cut. You would care to make that? Mr. Marshall make it, Ms. Hines seconds it. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, we got those two. Nice. Work here. Okay. Next up is our preliminary evaluation of city board, commissions, committees, and advisory bodies.
All right, Chair, and this is something that's stemming out of the Planning and Park Committee meeting, and there's a decent chunk of it more as a legal basis and the purpose of these different commissions, advisory boards, and committees that were distributed to the group last week. We do have now we had a team meeting today where we were able to get the staff time. We had to go through and find out every individual's contribution to each meeting, what that agenda time looks like. And then also go back and check the average time. We used the last 6 months of meetings to limit the time it takes for each meeting. So getting those numbers were a little bit more tricky. That said, what's being provided tonight is to start the conversation to review all the existing boards, commissions, committees that exist, that are current and active, that have folks appointed to them as we speak, and then start looking at, what is the legal basis for having them? What, if there are any changes that, the Planning and Parks Committee wanted to review to ensure that we are having meetings that are appropriate with the priorities of the council. So the idea would be to look at each one of our meetings to see if it's still in alignment with our priorities, and if so, do we need to increase the frequency of meetings? Do we need to change the term limit question? I know that as a charter provision, that's something that we've run into some issues with on some of the advisory committees, finding enough folks to fill the spots. So the idea would be to review each of the groups and kind of go through them one at a time. Tonight, we provided all of these different groups and the legal basis for them, purpose and the function. That's either we cite the code where possible. If not, we try to cite an ordinance or a memorandum or minutes that authorized it. But we want to try to show when it was established, how it was established, the purpose, function, or mission. Those can be 3 different things that are mentioned in the code. The meeting frequency is more of a summary, but it really comes from the composition requirements, which shows who makes up the committee or commission or board. And then the requirements is more so how often are they required to meet? Are there any other small tangible things that are required for that specific committee that makes it different? The term limits and terms. I want to call this out because it's a charter, it's the term limit. So we have in our charter, which would have to be approved by the voters, that if you're a resident that is appointed to serve on a board, you can serve on that committee, board, commission for 2 full terms, but after that, you can't serve on a board. So the idea behind that is, the idea of it is nice, but I will say what we've seen, at least with like the Architectural Review Board, where we've had to make some modifications, and also just some of our other committees that have these large structures and large bodies, we've seen it become more and more difficult to find folks that are fully engaged. I was talking to Chair Farmer before the meeting, and we had approximately 39 folks that have signed up to be potential appointees. We do hope that folks that are interested in local government can reach out and fill that out, so we have a better repertoire, more larger pool to choose from. But the idea, we're about to be talking about the 2026 calendar, and while we were doing that, we wanted to look at the basis for all the meetings we do have on the calendar, and also determine if there's any changes that need to be done, especially given that we made changes to the frequency of the city council meeting, and we didn't necessarily make any changes to the committees that support them. So tonight, the department pretty much provided a background. I know this is a 4 action item, but I would almost say this, the department would recommend this be a preliminary review of these items, and answer any questions, get some direction on the process that we're moving forward to now, and the columns that may not be completed just yet, but will be completed and could be completed by the December 8th meeting, when we're also going to be reviewing the meeting calendar. The other side of it would be, we're going to produce a meeting calendar for 2026 at the December 8th meeting that is consistent with past practice and consistent with code. The idea would be, we need to have that filled in, because that we just can't go without a meeting calendar per the code. But this would be more so the long-term solution of reviewing our meeting calendar and going through almost step by step to see if there's any changes that need to be made, or if there's any other committees that need to be created out of this, or something can be adopted or taken up by one of the committees that already exists. Department's available to answer any questions. I know it was a 4 action item. I would just like to request that we would bring this back. We'll have the full report done for the council meeting on Monday, but I almost think this could be something that could be discussed into January.
Anybody have any questions or concerns, thoughts? Yes, sir.
So would the process be like, looking to maybe eliminate some, combine some? I mean, I look at this and I said, why put economic development under parks and planning? Put watershed erosion under this group, and that's just briefly looking at it here for 5 minutes, and there's a lot that can be done in that way. And,
The idea, so, Councilor Delane and I had a pretty long conversation about
Right.
this, and I was in the park planning meeting to start talking about this. The sort of general suggestion, and Tom and I have talked a lot about this too, is to almost look at this in a similar way that we did the capital improvement budget, which is like, hey, we have all of these things and they're great, and you have a lot of volunteers, but sort of an maybe fully thought through, penalty to the parliament thing is you have people that actually are really interested in what they're doing that are now not able to do that. And, you know, I've had a number of conversations with the mayor where it is difficult to find enough people that are able to meet at the right time, whatever. And then the other side of that is, and economic development is a good example of this. Scott and I talked about it, where if 80% of your agenda is just talking about the thing that you talked about at the last agenda, you probably don't really need to have a meeting that then requires the staff to prepare the agenda, show up to the meeting, take minutes, recount all these things. So it's kind of leaning back and forth on them to say, this is what's legally required. This is sort of the opinion of the staff that, hey, you know, well, yes, this one maybe isn't as moving forward as we might think. It is important for these reasons. And then also looking at, you know, who can serve on them and for how long. Because we are rapidly approaching a place where, there is going to be a very, very large knowledge base that is sucked out of the city because they're just not able to serve it.
Just for the record, I voted no on that.
I didn't.
But I also know the charter was not, when we did the charter, I voted committee, of that. The charter was talking about terms for elected positions. The interpretation that ended up was, it's everybody. And that's the biggest mistake you can make, but I wasn't even on the council then, I was off, but as chair of that committee, you tried to explain to them, you don't see what you're doing here. And that, at the same time, it does not mean, and as the mayor, that was tough, taking people and saying, you can't be on this board anymore because you disagree with everybody, or you argue over everything, but that's what you have to do. And there's a mayor who's coming over 100 and some people for 4-year term. But the other thing that I don't know, I've had this with our mayor now, is there are a lot of people in the city like to get involved. And there's a lot of council people who know people like to get involved. But the mayor is really busy. And then when you don't know what night, nothing's more frustrating than somebody say, I think I'd like to do that. And say, but I can never do a Wednesday night. Oh, okay. So I mean, a lot of it is, this is self-inflicted. It's the same thing with economic development.
Right.
Years ago, we had 5 subcommittees. When you were on council, you were on 2 of those subcommittees. And then we did away with that and went to the 2 standing committees. And then in 2016 or 17, they decided we need an economic development committee. And people didn't want to serve on it because they knew what it was 15 years before. And we don't have anything to give. You know, we're not like, so it does become me. Let's just go and talk about it and see what we could do and promise. So I think there's a lot of those overlapping ones. But this is, and I think this is really fantastic. But I think what we need to do is to look at what is required under the state guidelines. We can do the municipal code, but we can't change that. The charter then becomes one of those things that need to be changed. But honestly, I don't think it's as restrictive as we all tended to believe it to be. I mean, there are some very basic things there that we don't do a very good job of looking at. But I just think if you could look at what the state requires us to do, and then have the staff look at where those things be listed, it would not be the first time that the Architecture Review Board, P&Z, combined on different efforts. That Board of Ethics, I mean, all these different pieces have another place, the safety board. There's all kind of places where, but you can't just say it's going to report back to admin and then not make it a permanent monthly report on that function. And I think that's where we've gotten so much knowledge in the meetings that you just don't have a good chance to get into the update of how can we help? How can we help the whole personnel issue? Who's helping the city administrator and rest of them on how to move things forward? Because you guys are very in order to do that. But I think that a lot of it, first of all, most of it's also, but I think there are ways that some of that could be corrected. But I would suggest we start with the things that are mandated by the state, and then kind of work back and go, you know what? That's set by us. Yeah, we look ourselves with pencil.
That's great.
It works well.
Yeah, I mean, that's a perfect, so really what Tom, I think, is asking for tonight is ideas just like that. How do we, just like we did with the capital improvement thing, where we're like, we're gonna turn red, green, and yellow, and we're gonna put here, whatever we're gonna do. Like, doing this and setting these things forward, so we just know that this is a conversation we need to have, and maybe some meetings like, I mean, economic development. We have it, but maybe we only need to have it every 2 months, or whatever it is. Because it's not like if something comes up, we can't recall people to have a meeting. But when it's set in a schedule, like the amount of times my wife comes to me and goes, you have that meeting tonight, right? And I'm like, no. She's like, why is it on the calendar? I'm like, I don't know. It's on the city calendar. So I think if we can kind of clear that up and also understand that, you know, if we can do things maybe, and I haven't read the legality of this yet, but, you know, structurally getting, you know, some of these committees are pretty large. I don't know that they need anything that large. And so that also.
When you said if we're that big, you're already failing.
That's right.
I mean, just do the math.
So, okay, so does anybody else have any other thoughts or questions or concerns on additions to this that they'd like to see coming back? I guess would be Monday, right?
Yep, we can have this chart updated by Monday for sure. And then the other side of it, we can go back and have almost like some kind of way to denominate that this board commission committee is a state mandated group. We can do that too. We'll have some way of identifying it instead of adding another column. I know we're getting pretty large with our.
Well, and one thought that Tom mentioned and that we were talking about is maybe what we do, while it would be great if we could get them by Monday meeting, like I would prefer to do this well than fast. So if we have to, like, if we're legally obligated to set the calendar, great, and then we can change it, you know, in February or
The
whatever.
first 3 months, you can have election in April anyway, you get new people, so that's through the first 3 months. And the calendar.
There are some that are the ones that, and we can go through it, no, we have it all listed out. There are some that are gonna say must meet every month, and until that code's changed, it's on the calendar, but there's.
Other subcommittees.
Yeah.
Some of these aren't even on the calendar, they're as to start with, but, you know, you're gonna do the city meeting, you can do planning and zoning. Meetings, but a lot of the others, I don't know that I would post it first 3 or 4 months.
We can work on that. We can bring that back. This will be on the agenda.
I'm just trying
and
to see.
we're getting pretty close. I know, the Department of Planning and Parks actually has some nice chunk of hours. The hours were the tough thing. We're tracking down like average time. Now that we have that, we're trucking along. We can have, I would say it almost would be
We just need
important.
to get the calendar set, like, given this also is, you can do that one.
We've got a draft calendar ready to rock and it is compliant with code. Everything's good on that front. I would almost, the recommendation for the department would be to proceed with the calendar. With that input, that maybe some of them are required, we push off this for the first, we just add them for the first 3 months. But then the secondary component would be to have this come forth as an informational item at the council meeting and then bring this back in January for both planning and parks and admin PW to have the full length discussion that I think it deserves. I think that gives us plenty of time to be necessary.
And not that I think we should do that, but unfortunately, on here, we do charter change every year. We would miss any charter changes this year because of the time period to do that. But that is an option. We would do the next charter review, but that would be in 2 years. But some of those little changes simply could be put on. If it's every 4 word changes. And then I think you could do that, but it wouldn't be done this next year.
All right, anybody have anything else on this? Okay, so you need a motion or anything?
Not tonight. If I got collected the feedback, from them all. No motions.
So this item, and I need also one point out, these are good examples of, you know, Councilmember Long and I have taken into account, some of your concerns, Mr. Marshall, about, you know, we have this one meeting and we get a lot of, and things like that. So we're actually trying to find items that we can come at together from 2 different directions, so that when we get to the work session, it's not like half of us are worrying about it for the first time. So you'll probably see a few more of these things as we go forward. Okay, next up, looks like Mr. Brown, update on improvement projects.
We get up into that, basically, just Googling. And they have changed the regulations of being able to replace that person. The governor has to be asked to fill a district position.
Okay.
To do a special election. So I think
Maybe we
we
should
should
formally
research that quickly and get a letter to the governor saying, hey, you know, here we are, our city, and get America, Carson Valley, and say, look, we'd like to have a special election for this, because they cut it off, and it's right there, the governor has, he's the one who does, and it even says that he's hesitant to do it because what there's other.
He's constitutionally required to call for a special election without delay.
So I think we as a city need to bring maybe a
That's what you do.
meeting, or bring that up and do a formal request to the governor that we get representation.
If we almost, when you want to tie that into a motion, that if legally possible, that a resolution be drafted for the council meeting.
Would say,
I like that.
I don't know why anybody would.
If legally possible, we can have that prepared with, if the
Yeah,
committee
that's what I wanted to
would.
get, we're good. for Rich.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Under administration, I think we should do that. I mean, I'll make that motion, but I think as a committee,
Yeah.
otherwise it's gonna sit there for months. and months
Yeah,
and
no,
months.
We'll just keep getting kicked down the road.
I agree. All right. So, Mr. Marshall, you're gonna make the motion to formally request
Request the governor set a special election for the replacement of our representative. District 1. As soon as possible.
I will say.
Second by Mr. Buck. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Any abstention? All right. Okay, then moving on to Public Works, status report on city improvement projects. Nice job, I didn't ask.
Chair Palmer, council members had provided the monthly update. Brendan helps put this together every month. Not a lot of changes at this point. Most of the projects that were identified for construction this year have been completed. I did want to point out, at least the thought would be moving forward. We can present this to you as a monthly item if you prefer to keep it on the agenda. And with the changeover to 2026, we would probably obviously remove the completed work. And then there might be a few projects we could add to this, or obviously we'll update it as we move forward, so. I guess I'm open to any questions or comments relative to this item.
Yes, sir.
Is this project 100%? Not lacking any more striping, not lacking landscaping. So there are some parts of the scope that they said I would get now. Yeah, 10 years after, but all the lap and all the black and second.
Brendan's offered to speak to this, so I'll let you.
There's
go
a
ahead.
couple minor corrections of pavement marking that are, they just,
I thought it was me. Then look at that and I go, I'll let you drag it now. People, hey, it could still.
If you have a particular area.
yeah, let us know.
Let us know, and we can forward that, but, I think we noticed a few, areas that were lacking some striping detail.
Yeah.
that are corrections that are going to be done. I think they also stated that because of the time of year when they did the striping, it was considered what they called temporary striping. It's waterborne paint. So they'll come back in the spring and restripe it with higher quality painting material that will last longer. So that you'll see next springtime when the weather breaks, I'm sure.
He announced that when they were his.
They were talking
Well,
about
good. He said, well, no, that's all temporary paint. That'll come off in the spring, the line. The thing that they heat seal were the bump outs for stop signs. They had torches heating that. That's permanent. But all of the other striping, you said you come back in the spring. With better paint.
Do you have anything else? Van?
I don't know if this comes under procedures or past practices, but when a project like Trail over on Old State comes in under budget, but has been approved by East West Gateway, full amount, obviously, can two of the big concerns in my ward were that all the trees, which are very beautiful. They all get mowed down and there's a huge shock in the appearance of Old State. And, you know, can the excess funds, since the state and federal, actually federal government, is providing 80% of that cost, can those funds be used for larger trees? Can they be used for solar power lighting, which was another consideration for the trail that cuts from Old State through the property and back into Lake Chesterfield? Can that money be accessed and used, or how does all that?
The short answer is no. Essentially, we've applied for a project, we've identified the scope of that project, and that's what they've funded. So we can't just take any overage money and just pocket it and spend it somewhere else, or add to the scope or change the scope. We can use it for approved change orders that MoDOT approves as necessary to construct the project. So there might be some availability there to do it, to tap into those funds if we have change orders. It's again, like to be approved through MoDOT. As I said before, I think there might be some limited opportunities for landscaping. However, you know, we disturbed the minimum necessary to build the project and address the stormwater issues that MSD required us to address. So there's not a lot of areas that we have easements that we have rights to go into the landscape, quite frankly. The property owners did not bring that up as a request when we designed it. We acquired easements by and large. If they were to say that that was a desire, I'm sure we would listen and work with them and potentially consider something as we get through construction of the project. So if there's an area that makes a lot of sense, that's not inconsistent with what we've done elsewhere, frankly. But we don't have a lot of money budgeted either. So that one, you know, would need to be addressed. I'm sure Joe would agree with that as well. As far as other trails, we've certainly done landscaping. It's not inconsistent with what we've done elsewhere.
No. I just have two quick things. I don't know if it's probably maybe a snowplow thing. Somebody looks like they made a left where they're not supposed to go in east of 100 at Pond Road and just really tore up whatever new dirt and grass and things they put in there. I don't know if they bounced off that median or what happened, but there's some pretty deep stuff, so we might want to know. I don't know if MoDOT can do anything about it now, but it's certainly going to be ugly in the spring. And then were you asking for next year if we want to keep this as a monthly item, or do you want to change it maybe to do like actual like new things, or we can bring stuff up, but like we don't have to do this whole thing?
I was basically asking for feedback. If you wanted to see it as a recurring monthly item, we can certainly do that.
Once you start a project, I mean, I don't think Medbury can carry stuff that's finished, but I think it's really helpful. I know we get to see it here, then we see it in the council, but it takes away anybody asking. At least you have the right to look at it. Kind of like, I don't think we need to keep old things on there. I think we should.
Do you think it's better? I kind of like the information in general, but is it better as an item in here, or would that maybe, what if we try to do something similar? We're doing like the code enforcement or the police stuff in the city administrator's report, which is like, this is the stuff that's going on.
We typically keep, for all our big capital projects, I keep that, even if it doesn't change, I've been consistent keeping that pretty similar. Even if there's, and then you'll notice that even a small change, like, oh, that submittal was completed and it's currently under review by MoDOT, and you'll notice, you know, it might be 2 weeks where it's still in that phase. I mean, nothing's happening. We're checking with MoDOT, working with our consultants, but then, you know, that next week, it's not necessarily a big celebration, but you'll see, hey, you know, MoDOT's approved that design, and now we're ready to bid the project.
For us, you know, once a month, you can hear, but like saying you want to put it. Yeah, I just think it is good information, especially when you know somebody's going to ask for it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I would say, well, I think you guys do a very nice job of writing this all up. There's a lot that's going into this thing a lot of the time, so like, you know, I think if you can simplify and make this like a more efficient thing while in progress. Yeah, and then we know, like, you know, you could say, hey, like, now we all know that the striping on 100 is there, but not the greatest it could be, it'll be redone in the spring, so if somebody asks us, we go, yep, that's happening in the springtime, or whatever it is, so, yeah, I mean, I think the information is good, I think if you can find a simpler way to convey it, I'm be all for that. Anybody else have any thoughts or questions or concerns on any of the projects we got going on, or Rick's thoughts on conveying this as we move into the next year, starting fresh next month?
And then, sorry,
Yeah.
I didn't want to interrupt
No, you're
your
good.
thought, but where was the location of the issue on 100?
Where they put like a left, you can make a left off of westbound 100 on the pond.
Yes.
Somebody made a left off of eastbound 100 on a pond. And I don't know if it was because it was a snowstorm or they didn't know the thing was there, but whatever it was
Did they drive over that track? The median?
they went through the
Oh, okay.
the grass, the dirt, the hay, it's all.
So that entire, okay.
Yeah, that was kind of my thought. I didn't know if it was a salt truck or what,
And
whatever.
it's
it
at
was,
the
it was-
intersection of Pond?
it was large. Yeah. So that cross section on the road is. I will say this, now, this is probably not clear. I do want to say, I think our contractors, and you guys did a great job with these storms. I kept having to explain to my kids that the roads in Wildwood are great, the roads everywhere else are not, and that is a big thing. So those guys did a great job. I saw different equipment out doing different stuff this time, so, good job on all of that. That was,
Very good, yeah.
all the stuff.
We'll say that, kudos to the entire Department of Public Works, because we got quite a few compliments from residents even that have called in today with other items of concern. And they specifically mentioned that difference between state maintained roads and county roads when driving home. They were pretty much, white knuckling was the thing I heard multiple times, but once I got onto Valley, once I got onto Allenton, it was all smooth sailing from there, so.
Somebody said this morning they flew in late last night and there were no Ubers or no Chesterfield little things. So they took a cab from the airport back out here. And so the cab driver looked at the Wildwood and said, whoa, what's going on here? The whole way out the interstate, you just heard that.
And we did have, it was interesting, there was, supposedly the National Weather Service thought that yesterday they underestimated it too, so we're a good learning experience for them, and also, that's what, if you noticed, if you were stuck in traffic, that's what supposedly led to some of that traffic. So, interesting stuff, but happy with our partners, and good job, Department of Public Works.
All right, that brings us to an update on MSD.
Council members, Chair Farmer, wanted to provide this information to you. MSD has been having a fairly regular local leaders luncheon. It's available, and I don't know how far that invite goes out, but you're certainly welcome to attend it if you're interested. They used to provide a lunch, if you want to call it that, with the meeting. Otherwise, its intent is very good to provide information and allow you to ask questions. From our perspective, the meeting that they had last month, primarily the information that was most relevant was pertaining to the new municipal stormwater grant program. And there wasn't a lot of new information there, but they did provide an update to us. And I did provide an overall copy of the PowerPoint that was presented. The municipal stormwater grant program is going to start, and they're working on an application process we should see this quarter. Essentially, we will be able to apply for $300,000 annually. Essentially, stormwater funds that we can use within MSD's jurisdictional area, so not outside that, not west of 109, generally speaking, because it only is applicable to MSD's area. But we can use that for planning purposes, for design, or for construction of stormwater projects. So it has fairly wide applicability for use. And certainly a lot of the stuff that we're contemplating relative to watershed erosion is certainly right up that program's purview. So something we need to be keeping in mind going forward. They did provide us with their new grant administrator, and I got to meet her, Marcy is her name. I think it's Mooten or Moten is her last name. So they have someone who's been appointed to serve as their grant administrator. She is certainly available to meet with us if necessary, if we'd like to do that. So that was the main part of the luncheon. I think that was most relevant was the start of the stormwater grant program. Yeah, we should be hearing something first quarter relative to the potential to submit an application to use the funding. We do not have to use it. There's no deadline on it. Obviously, we want to use it, but it does not go away. They're just going to hold it, and we can use it in a future year if we don't use it each calendar year. So you can bank it, and you can let it build up, and then tap into it for a large project if that's the desire is of the city. So it won't go away. It'll still be there. Yeah, it's just that when we want to use it, we've got to submit a formal application to MSD for their review and approve as well. So.
All right, anybody have any questions on that? Mr. Bunich?
Just out of curiosity, do we bank it or do they hold it and bank it? Do they collect interest and do we get the interest that they accrue during the hold period?
They get the interest.
I got a guess on that.
Yep.
I don't think anybody asked a specific question, Joe, but we don't hold the money. They hold the money. So.
Many years, sure.
Yeah, don't use it anytime soon.
Do we have projects listed that you would be in a position to bring us up with, and we have any specific that we go after?
Yeah, I mean, something, and this will kind of lead into our next item here too, but something that we have to consider as a city is really most areas west of 109 this money won't be able to be used for any of those things because that's outside of their service. So, but we do have projects. They've got a couple of things that they've sort of already earmarked, right? That they want that they want to do. And so, yes, we do have a long list of things that need some attention. But that's going to be kind of wrapped into this next thing. Great. All right. Anybody have anything else on? Yeah, Rick, you need anything from us? That's just information. Okay. Next up is the proposed stormwater basin retrofit. And Mr. Buttigieg. All right, Mr. Brown, take it away.
Either or is fine. This is the next item that's relative to MSD and stormwater in the city of Wildwood. What we have for you tonight is a presentation that provided to the Planning and Parks Committee. This originated in the Watershed Erosion Task Force. Mr. Todd Wagner with Wagner and Associates has completed his report on the feasibility and recommendations to modify existing stormwater detention basins in upper portions of the Cox Creek watershed. And the idea here is to modify the potentially 5 stormwater basins that are in existence on 4 different subdivisions. One of them is, and one of them is right out here on the southeast side of City Hall. Modify these existing stormwater detention basins so that essentially they're more effective and they hold back more stormwater and lessen downstream impacts, effectively lessen potential for erosion downstream and flooding as well. So this is a very proven technique to reduce flow in the watershed. And the idea is if we can work and do modifications to existing basins, we can reduce flow downstream, reduce the potential for erosion downstream and the potential for flooding downstream. So Mr. Wagner looked at in particular 5 stormwater basins in 4 subdivisions. There's essentially 2 in the west branch of Cox Creek, 2 in the eastern branch of Cox Creek, the upper portions of the watershed. And effectively, Mr. Wagner's recommendation was that we should move forward with 2 modification projects, either in the west branch or the east branch, but also look at, he's identified a number of areas where we could install new regional stormwater basins. So it's kind of a 2-pronged approach. One, we look at modifying existing basins and existing subdivisions. And then 2, we look at new basins, potentially in some subdivisions that are out there right now, for additional stormwater detention, new basins and new subdivisions for regional detention. So those two facets hand in hand can cumulatively have an impact downstream and address this problem. Maybe not in its entirety, but certainly have a meaningful impact in stream bank erosion as well as flooding downstream. So again, the recommendation to Planning and Parks was to move forward with essentially modifications for 2 basins and look at regional basins as well. The motion that Planning and Parks approved was to move forward with all 5 basins. And that recommendation, I believe, is going to go to the full city council. So tonight, I think the thought was with this committee is to also effectively consider a motion to support moving forward. That's the desired outcome.
Yeah, so, this comes from a very long amount of time and energy effort. And, the USGS study went a very long way with this. And so Mr. Wagner's done an incredible job of digging into all this stuff. And basically what he said was, you know, if you can, his suggestion was basically, if you can only pick two in one place or the other place. If you can do all of them, that's a better way to go. And if we can get all of this stuff to work together, that being retrofit the existing ones, and we're able down the road here in the short term to add in relatively inexpensively in comparison to the other stuff, this additional things. The USGS study, and Mr. Brunish, correct me if I'm wrong, I mean, they said their thought was, if we can get all these things done, that reduces the flow something like 50 to 75% in these very high flow events that we're having more frequently. And so what we talked about, and in talking to the other members, a number of members on the watershed task force, we can use this as proof of concept. So then we can apply it to other parts of the city because we have done the most studying and everything else in these places. And because these are generally in the most densely populated parts of the city, they're also causing the most amount of damage. So we should be able to make the most impact. So, I mean, my suggestion as the chair of the Watershed Erosion Task Force is I would agree with Parks and Planning. That's something we should look at. The other thing that this does, I think, from a city perspective, is one of the biggest challenges we've had as a task force is it's a really weird thing when we have public areas and private areas and who's responsible for what. And it's MSD and it's kind of like all these different things that we got to get the Army Corps of Engineers to approve stuff. And so from a city standpoint, we control what happens in these basins. We can make these adjustments. And then, you know, if we have an extra $3 or $5 million to fix the triple meander, great. But if we've done what we can do and the triple meander gets punched through, that's really an MSD or a state problem to fix. That's not going to be ours. Certainly hope that's not the case. But it will help us to kind of get a little bit over this hurdle of, you know, you have in some places you have an HOA and then you have like 4 homeowners. How do we balance that out? So, we've looked at this a lot. This is the very best way, I think, and the most appropriate way to make this go. And hopefully it works as well as they say it will. Yes, sir.
Thank you for recognizing me. Mr. Brown and Mr. Farmer have done an excellent job of explaining almost 5 years of work of the Watershed Erosion Task Force. Everybody that we've engaged, whether it's an engineer, a geomorphologist, a hydrologist, have all said that you've got to address the cause instead of always fixing the problems. And so that's the key component here. We can certainly go in and dump riprap, stabilize an unstable area, but we know there's going to be a storm that's going to eventually remove all of that, waste the money we've spent, and end up adding to the problem. And the basin retrofits seem to be the best approach because many of the basins that have been identified by Mr. Wagner and other consultants were done many, many years ago at a less than desirable standard, and we can address that. One of the things that came up, and Rick and I were laughing about it the day after the Planning and Parks Committee, and we talked about it today, Mr. Lee, Mr. Brown, and I, is actually creating those regional facilities and drainage tributaries by just blocking them with the appropriate amount of material based upon the best engineering. And there was a thought today, instead of maybe doing the gambit of basins that have been identified, maybe setting aside a little money to do engineering on that future proposal. Tom used the word provocative, and it is. It seems so simple that can it really work? But if it did work, I think the number, Tom, was what, 2 million cubic feet of additional stormwater storage? That's a massive number. And so the thought might be is maybe just the motion a little. So as we do the basins, but if we have additional funding, available funding, maybe to do a little bit of exploratory engineering project and see if it would really work.
Yeah, I mean,
Thank you.
I took the motion, and I could be wrong, but I took the motion from Parks and Planning to do all of that.
Okay,
Yeah,
right.
not just the basis, but
Yep.
like, you know, if we're gonna do it, let's do it. And if we, because the problem is if you do half of it and it kind of works, then you gotta wait a bunch more years to do the rest. So, so anyways,
I go with Mr. Farmer's memory. He's much younger than.
so if anybody has any questions or concerns, obviously we can answer those. If anybody cares to make a motion, I guess, to even just support what Parks and Planning has already done, we'll see it again on Monday.
The question I have is, I saw the option here for not digging out those ponds. Is that more of a safety issue? I mean, if you have equipment in there.
Yeah.
At $200,000, try to go back to do that 4 or 5 years from now would be $500,000 or $600,000. If you've got construction equipment in there, would it be an advantage to dig out 3 feet of mud at the bottom?
So I have heard this, I'm not arguing with Mr. Wagner, who is an engineer. I am just, Mr. Budish and I have had this conversation a lot. I don't know how you don't take 2 feet of dirt out of the bottom of the pond and how it can hold more water. But that's what they tell us. I kind of think that's one of those things where if you go through the pictures, like there are certain places where like I think it's sort of a no-brainer that just needs to be done. But it may not need to be done everywhere. So I would say, again, for Parks and Planning, it was like, let's do what needs to get done. And so if we need to spend $200,000 to do it, great. There's a pond that is at Strecker and Kerr's Mill where they did this, and they basically have like a giant water bag thing for a while full of just goop. So, I mean, there's a lot that goes into doing that too. It may not be necessarily particularly possible to do it. But from everything I've seen and the designs and things, and obviously we have to reach out to certain HOAs and stuff to get final sign up on this stuff. I mean,
I would think there's the equipment that it's gonna take to put that in the sides and do the banks. Might as well go ahead and scoop out. Yeah, I remember when we built Cherry Hills, and remember the stuff came out, the guys stopped the dump truck and all the mud just came out over and that was all hazardous material. You know, it's way bigger than that. It just seems logical.
Yeah.
If you're gonna be there tearing it up, can you take more dirt out to allow that maybe another few years? I don't know.
Mr. Farmer, remember when we met with the homeowners associations, the trustees, one of the carrots they gave to us is, sure, we'll let you in and we'll let you do this, and we'll even keep maintaining it. But can you get this, can you get the gook out of the bottom of our basin?
and make it operate better. And he did, Mr. Wagner did say that, I mean, while there may not be a technical benefit to doing it, there is a structural benefit in that the pond functions better, you're not gonna have fish die off, which are very expensive, and they don't get algae blooms and things like that. So I think that there is certainly a reason to do it. And I mean, the concept from Parks and Planning anyways, is this is one of our top priorities. Like this might be a thing, if it's a $2 or $3 million project, that we look at going to the reserve to go, hey, we're doing this. This is our proof of concept, and then we will figure this out. So, yeah, I mean, I think doing it and doing it the right way is the best way to do it. I think he's feeling it. All right. Great. All right. Motion made by Mr. President to, I guess, support the Parks and Planning motion. Anybody care to second that? Second by Mr. Bachert. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any abstentions? All right, I guess that passes. We'll see it, Monday. I suppose.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks everybody. The task force is gonna be excited and get some trouble with the ground somewhere. That's right. Yes, sir.
Anything we decided to. do for action?
I would say no. Right now, we've got $500,000 budgeted for stormwater management projects in 2025, and that's more than enough. We haven't even completed the full engineering scope of the engineering necessary to do projects that are retrofits. So I'd say we'd be fine. We'd be able to do a mid-year adjustment. If by that time, if everything's moving along, we feel as if it's all coming together, that's what we'd have. We just don't have the exact number just yet.
We're in pretty good shape.
We've got plenty of money to be able to proceed with the planning.
People that heard some recommendations that were not.
Are you saying like some way to, are you trying to say some way to earmark the funds for this purpose, even though we might not have a tangible physical thing to say, let's go dig right now?
Yeah.
That, I mean, we've done that in the past. It's, I don't, yeah, we did that with the deer. I wouldn't recommend it for most things. This is one of those top priorities for the council. This would be one of the very few times that could be necessary. The one thing I'd advise against though is that there's most likely going to be a caveat. I don't know for sure. Mr. Brown may be able to answer this more direct, but I believe when we get these funds from MSD, I think they're going to be requesting that we create some special fund that we would use to utilize the funding once we get it. So we would show them and they would be able to access our funds for that fund. So I'd almost say if we're going to do it, we should take advantage of that time just to have one, well, you might want to separate those two as well. No, yeah. That's, so that, well, yeah, we could.
Maybe what we do, and maybe what we can do is if we, approving the $500,000 that we already have is great. But then now, because everybody in both communities have basically supported this anyways, then it's just saying, hey, we're earmarking up to X amount, from this place. We give it to say, like, we're not gonna still have money, budget money that comes in 2027, 2028, and plus the MSD still, like, it gets complicated to go again. No. Right. And so I do think kind of having a call out of some kind.
We could do that in the 5-year and it would be more projection, but that said, I mean, I would say once we have the final numbers, the thing is, say we were to get back, we're done with the engineering, we're paid up in full on the engineering itself, but now it's time to start digging and we get the bids back and let's just throw a number out there. It's 1.5 million to do what we want. The council at any point of the year can, in theory, pass an ordinance that would authorize an agreement for 1.5 million. We would just at the same exact time amend the budget to accommodate it. The department's going to advise that this is the change in the balance that you're causing with that change, but the council has the authority to do that at any time. There's nothing in the code for sure.
Revise or the budget halfway through the year.
Yep.
$2 million.
Yeah, you can, as long as the council's, yeah. The main charter provision is just your expenditures don't exceed your budgeted revenues plus account balance.
There is a caveat on the charter.
3.9, the capital.
That's 4.5. But there's another one in about presenting a budget.
Yes.
If you don't present a balanced budget, then there's a way you have to work around it, but that's something I think we should be talking about before we get on the budget. It's what's the workaround? Yeah, if you're knowingly paying money, gonna spend more than you're gonna bring in, there's a charter provision. You have to explain that before we go on. Now, there's a lot of stuff we violate charter. I'm just saying, you ought to read it before the meeting. You'll see that it's about the city administrator's responsibility for submitting a balanced budget to council. And if we don't have it agreed to, we used to have meetings right up until New Year's Eve, right? But if you don't have an active budget, you automatically restrain to last year's January budget. So there's a lot of things in there. I know there's a clause that talks about the city administrator submits a balanced budget, not exceeding spending over revenue spending. That doesn't mean we can't spend the money. We can do that. It's just, I think, the way we have to address it.
In theory, we could, I mean, we have a balanced, it's cutting deep in the pockets, but the first budget we presented, version A, was balanced, so in theory, we could have that.
I personally, man, I think we should be spending that reserve for years, but we don't. And then we get in, we say, well, wonder why that is. Well, that's the provisions were in there. Everybody, well, I can't do that.
We can check that for sure, and then the other thing is, we could have that budget pretty much set up so that if needed, that could be adopted if,
I actually
for
think it's one of
consistency's
the
sake.
ways that can be done, just like Bob was talking about, is you can set that and say, this is, now I'm gonna wanna do the stormwater thing, because we have that matching funds for that, but I think that's the way we can get around it. I just hate to see that so many different funds. I know the charter is very specific about spending more without acknowledging, just voting on it.
Okay, well, we can hopefully do that. All right, anything else on the storm or on the basins? Okay, that brings us to the supplemental trail license agreement.
For Farmer Council members, moving forward, this next item is relative to an existing pedestrian tunnel that the city worked with MoDOT to construct around or following 2010 under Highway 109 near Woods Avenue. At that time, the tunnel that was constructed connects the Hamilton Car Trail to Rockwoods Reservation and provides a nice, safe way for folks to get under Route 109, either pedestrians or cyclists. The original agreement with MoDOT, the license agreement that was executed, expires at the end of December. So it had an original 15-year term on it. So MoDOT contacted the department and suggested that we should execute a new agreement and extend that license agreement by another 10 years. So tonight we are bringing that recommendation to execute that agreement to the committee, and I'm sure Mr. Vunich would concur. Both departments of Public Works and Parks would like to move forward with this supplemental license agreement, and that's the recommendation to you tonight. If you approve the recommendation, we'll forward it to the City Council.
Second. All right, made by Mr. Marshall, seconded by Mr. Preston. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Any abstention? All right, that passed. I said, why would we not?
Yeah.
I don't see any reason at this point in time why we wouldn't.
I mean, would it make more sense to do it longer?
And that might be the only question is why don't we do it longer, but
I mean, like, what would happen if we didn't?
It'll fall apart in 11 years, we are. That's true. I guess that's
I
fine.
mean, we are responsible for maintaining it. so-
I'm just saying, like, I don't know why we wouldn't say it's 100 years.
The long-term maintenance.
Okay.
Under 109, but
10 years it is then. Excellent. That was easy. Okay, next up is the proposed application for federal funding. And good for question.
So this next item hopefully is correct in front of you. We are, have been contacted by East West Gateway. Annually, they solicit for federal funding applications from municipalities, and the annual round is out. Applications are due by February 6th of 2026. There's about $50 million available for the Missouri counties from East West Gateway's region for this round of funding, which is about typical. There's 3 separate funding programs that are available. So after giving this a little bit of thought for this year, one of the areas that we thought would be a good project for consideration is the what we call Structure 3107 on Wild Horse Creek Road. That is currently a deficient 11-foot by 7-foot stone box culvert that some of you may recall we actually did some work on a couple years ago to improve its condition and essentially extend its life a bit. So with that work that was done to repair it, we also started the design of a replacement structure at that time. So that replacement structure has been designed and we essentially have it on the shelf at the moment. And the replacement is in our capital improvements program for, I think, Tom's at 2028. So if we decided to move forward and we're successful, we can hopefully get the federal government to pay for 80% of the cost to construct this project. We've been successful in the past. Brendan's reached out already to be sure that it is eligible. We believe that it should be. If not, we'll certainly report back if we learn anything to the contrary. We did get an updated cost from our consultant to replace this structure, and actually the cost was lower than I was envisioning. The actual cost estimate they gave us today was about $800,000. So what I put in the memo may be on the high side, but I think in the past, we've tended to undershoot the costs, and so I want to make sure we're on the high side this time. But if you approve the recommendation to you tonight, which is to start the process of the application, we can bring it back to you next month with a more firm number for cost, and then allow you to have a final approval of it, and then we need a resolution by the full city council. So I guess tonight we're asking for a motion to approve moving forward with at least the tentative application process, and then we can bring it back to you in January.
Just so I'm clear on this too, this is that, the bridge right there that connects down to one lane.
That is correct, yes.
And that is a safety concern view on. They come around the corner, I drive it, I need to do that every day, so. You come around that corner and you really don't even know until like last second.
You have an alternative way.
Yeah. I think.
You know,
But neither one of them are good routes. They're terrible. Yeah. But I mean, honestly, I think that's been a real concern for probably a lot of years. I mean, that's the one bridge on the backside of Welfare Street, that really becomes kind of an issue. Not that it floods, I mean, the repairs, it's never a hazard in that, but, it is dangerous, yeah. And I mean, you veer to the left and you're off the left. That obviously is my word, so I have a little vested take on it, but if we can get dollars to help me subsidize the cost, I know what people. That's how that.
Just a quick question. I'm having trouble visualizing this. Can somebody pull it up?
And I apologize, I meant to mention, it is on White Horse. It's about 4/10 of a mile south of Centaur Road.
But can we pull it up on?
Yeah.
Yep, we're working on it.
Also, will point, I made a mistake in my memo and I said that we needed a minimum local match of 80%. It's a 20% local match. 80% is the amount we can.
Of our portion would be.
Our match would be 20% of whatever we request, which would be on the order of probably closer to 1.2 million at this point, 1 to 1.2. But I'll finalize that number and bring that back to you in January.
So we're talking. Exactly what are we gonna do with this?
So the replacement structure is a single span bridge. It's about 60 feet in length. The 2 lanes in width, so it'll match essentially the width of the current roadway. But it does grow from a box culvert structure to a short single span bridge essentially.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, so we have a motion to proceed. Anybody care to second? Seconded by Mr. Albers. All those in favor of proceeding with the department's recommendation on the replacement bridge, please say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Any abstention? All right. Next up is the contract bids for the Manchester Crosswalk project.
Thank you, council members, Chair Farmer. This next item, I apologize. We were a little bit with the holiday slow to get it posted. And I apologize for not having this information to you previously. I did, I think, attach it to the agenda there. So my updated memorandum that's attached to the meeting agenda reflects the information today that we received when we opened the bids for this project. So several years ago on Manchester Road, we resurfaced Manchester Road from Taylor Road over to Schnucks, their west driveway. At that same time, we installed 3 rapid flashing beacons at 3 crosswalks. And as years have gone by, we've had some issues with maintenance of those flashing beacons. And then more recently, we've had a couple car incidents where we've had 2 of the poles that two separate crosswalks knocked over, so. With the issues we're having with the operations of those crosswalks, we've got a number of issues that aren't currently functioning right now. To address all those concerns, we put together the project in bid it and open bids today. So the cost of low bid, the lowest responsive bid that we received today was for just over $77,000 to basically rehab and renovate the 3 pedestrian crosswalks, the flashing beacons at those locations, and address the 2 pole removals that we need to address that were struck by cars. So we had 3 bidders that submitted bids, Authorized Electric, Mayer Electric, and also Gerstner Electric, all 3 companies we've worked with before. I did want to be upfront and note to you that Authorized, for whatever reason, didn't submit what we considered a responsive bid. And unfortunately, they were the lowest bid. They were about $4,000 lower than the second, which was Mayer Electric. So Authorized didn't submit on the bid documents that were required through the RFP. I'm not really sure what their mindset was, but I feel like they don't typically do construction bidding. They do a lot of our maintenance work for us. We specifically sent this bid to them and asked them to consider it. But my sense is they don't do a lot of contracting, hard construction bidding, and maybe they just felt obligated to give us a number, but they really didn't want to go through the practice of bidding it. I'm not really sure. We didn't have time to follow up with them. So again, the recommendation tonight was to go with the second lowest bid, quite frankly, which was Mayer Electric, at just over $77,000 for the work. So that is the recommendation to you tonight as the committee is to move forward with an agreement with Mayer Electric. Do the project, I wouldn't expect construction to occur until next year at this point in time.
All 3, right? Based on all 3 of them.
Yes, basically, yes.
I know I've seen some crosswalks, like, in the Green Army Rim, or like, you must have this event, that's still, and then you're on top of that, so that as people continue to run into them, they're running into the cement portion, and they're not damaging the crosswalk or the pole, so that is not an option. I mean, to have a couple of them, I feel good.
Yeah, I
Arm is gonna have to get.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, if we do this, does that mean people are gonna stop driving into them, or?
And this is the one.
Next time will be 100,000,
Right.
We'll also again.
So, could they be hit? Yes, they could be hit. We've had, that, it's ironic that, I shouldn't say ironic. We do see a fair amount of crashes in this stretch of Manchester. I'm not really sure I can put a finger on it. We've speculated that, some of these are resulting from the establishment up the street. And there may be some truth to that, frankly.
People would find those.
So when we get, so just keep in mind too, when we do get crash reports, the police, if there's an insurance company involved, we do move to collect costs to repair these through the insurance. So we do oftentimes get reimbursement through the insurance process. Not every time, but a lot of times. Even this most recent one, Wildwood Precinct was able to track down the offender through using the license plate camera that we have down the road. So they did a little bit of detective work, and we were able to locate the offender and
That goes to court. We have to wait.
follow up with that regard. So we are able frequently to collect through the insurance process when these things are struck. So then there is that, but I can't guarantee that it won't happen again. You may be thinking of MoDOT. With their traffic signals, they have a very large concrete base that they mount, and yeah.
Initially, you think it's safety issue, but they do put it on their intersections. They are, it's like a 2.5 to 3 foot diameter concrete.
Yeah, it's absolutely, yeah, it's like 3 foot high, and if you hit one with a vehicle, it's not good for the occupants of the vehicle. I will agree with that.
You still have a crosswalk, be okay. So, it would be like you might walk.
So no, we're not mounting it on a base that's designed to handle an impact from a vehicle. That's not typically how it's done. We can research that a little bit, but it would go back on the base, the footing that is basically flush with the sidewalk or the road. So it's still will break away.
Yeah.
I was gonna make a motion that we look at something more preventative, like Tracy was suggesting, instead of putting something up that's just gonna be hit again, you know?
Do you want to, does it make sense to do that, but also if we find that there isn't something that is better, we can go with what we've got? I mean, I don't know, Rick, how long it take for you guys to say, to do it or not. I mean, I knew we were gonna redo it, we would have to redo the whole bid.
Well, frankly, and I'm not real confident there is anything out there, but, yeah, if we did find something, we'd probably have to reject the bid and rebid it. So I think the best course of action would be just to move forward. If you'd like us to research that or do a little more, investigation and report back, we're happy to do that. If we can find anything that might be more suitable in the future.
Have all three of them been hit? It just doesn't seem right to put the same thing up
Yeah,
again.
I think maybe if we need to take more time, I would take the time and do it right. I mean, it is kind of weird, 2 out of 3. At least.
I think the logical thing to do would be to remove the poles or the posts from the median islands first. I believe the one at Cherry Hills Meadows in the median has probably been hit twice, so that'd be my first suggestion. Would be, or maybe just eliminate that one in the median, and that would reduce the long-term potential for vehicle strikes. The ones in the median island are strictly optional; they're not required. I don't know that we've had the one in Old Fairway struck at this point in the median. The other one was on the outside. So it was more of a, I think more of a one-off, frankly, but, yeah.
Cause I'm trying to think, there's the ones that, Broken Loop, there's one there, right?
I want to say it's in the median there too, but it's at the roundabout.
Yeah.
So the island and the splitter island is right there at the intersection, so it's not, I wouldn't call it a similar installation necessarily.
So these bids would be including putting some in the median, or taking it out, and just not doing anything? Like, are we just replacing what's like on the sides, so we take out the middle part? Because that's what's getting hit.
So we're replacing the median post at Cherry Hills Meadows, and that one got struck, so this would replace that one. The other one that got struck was at Schnucks, and it was on the south side of the road. So that one's down right now. So we could look to just not replace the one in the median at Cherry Hills Meadows. That would save a little bit of money. If you'd like to go that route, I would not be opposed to that, if that's what you'd like to do. Maybe that would be the easiest way to kind of respond to that issue.
What do you guys think?
I just would go no, just replacing ones. Some way to improve that, to say, hey, we tried something else. I'd be opposed to that, even with more money.
Or just to, I mean, especially ones that hit more than once, and there's definitely something, whether it's happening up the street or not. There's definitely a problem.
Are we?
I mean, I guess I hear what you're saying, but I also know that things get hit, and that's just the nature of it. And if you want to have safe crosswalks, that's why we put these out there, is to make the crosswalk safe, because we know there's cars out there. So it's just an inherent danger, I think. I don't think you're ever gonna have a situation where it's totally risk-free, frankly.
Have I seen them with crosswalks with the lights embedded into the road? So, I mean, so they start flashing, you won't be able to see them during snow conditions.
Well, I think the only flash is when it hits the button.
Right.
Exactly, but they would be in the road versus, I think I've seen those, but I'm not sure.
But the one at the Meadows, that's clearly the most, one that's most dangerous, you know?
That's
Do we,
at risk.
yeah, at risk, do we, I don't know if we want to eliminate the sign there even, but,
Yeah.
I mean, I just think there's a better way to do it.
Maybe since it's not gonna get, since we wouldn't be doing the construction, I mean, probably obviously until next year, maybe even I assume springtime. Maybe what we do is we, you know, the motion can be something to the effect of like, we have these in hand and that's great. We can assess whether this is.
Review the options. for-
Yeah,
There you go, perfect.
Yep, and then we'll know, because if you gotta go back and go, this is the best way to do it, then that's kind of how it's going. But then that gives.
Everybody that much time.
All right.
I'll second it.
Marshall, second by Mr. Albers. Amy, you good on that one? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? All right, we'll see that one again. That brings us to, miscellaneous. Anybody have any miscellaneous, anything they want to bring up? For tonight? If not, then our next meeting is scheduled for January 7th. Proposed, assuming the calendar is approved, it looks like. So I will need to take a motion to adjourn. Made by Mr. Ballard, second by Diane. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, thank you, everybody, for coming out.
Thank you.